We are back in Montreal, where the Royal are hoping to break an AUDL attendance record again. In the team's inaugural season, the fan support here in Quebec has been steady and special. Tonight, the Montreal Royal dream of delighting their devoted fans with a win against the playoff-bound DC Breeze. It's a gorgeous evening for Ultimate here in downtown Montreal, and we're ready for another AUDL showdown. The Breeze set to battle the Royal on ESPN3. You could not ask for a more beautiful night for Ultimate. Hi, everybody. It's the DC Breeze and the Montreal Royal. We are inside Percival Molson Stadium, the AUDL on ESPN3 coming at you. I'm Evan Lepler alongside Chicago Nemesis standout Megan Tormey. Megan, these two teams played a classic earlier this year. It looked like Montreal had the win on the road in our nation's capital, and the team from Canada could not close it out. But a great opportunity today against this DC team that's hungry but not at full strength.
You're right, Evan, and what's so interesting about the DC Breeze is they have made huge changes from last year's season where they were 4-12. A lot of time was spent off-season pulling in new players, and they have been patiently biding their time this season, developing the chemistry to come with the firepower that we hope to see tonight.
Well, the DC Breeze had an ownership change, and the first order of business was to get two national champions, Tyler DiGirolamo and Alex Thorne, but those two guys are not here. So who will be looking for on DC to be the key guys tonight without Tyler and Alex?
First and foremost, we have to look for Brett Matsuka, one of the top defensive handlers for the Breeze. He refuses to quit on D, which is why he leads his team in Ds. As a handler, his throws are not only extremely practiced and precise in terms of placement, he's also great at timing.
370 touches, way more than anybody else on his team.
And 100% catching percent on that one. Moving on, Logan is one of the more exciting players around the red zone. He's difficult to guard mostly because of his ability to intelligently make snap decisions with only a narrow margin to work with, both as a thrower and a cutter. Finally, Justin Wu is one of the more passionate players on the Breeze. He'll follow the play through the bitter end. That awareness and dedication to the point often puts him in prime position to make the play.
Well, this Montreal team still looking to beat one of the top three in this division. They played Toronto tough. They've certainly played New York and DC tough. This is the last home game for Montreal, the last chance to get a signature win at Percival Molson Stadium. What are your keys for the Royal? Who's going to need to step up?
Tim Sang has the most foresight and has the patience of a player much older than him. At 23, it's astounding how much he controls and guides the Royal offense. While his repertoire of throws are diverse, his specialties are the inside-out flick and the long backhand huck. Number 33, Yolan Cabot, is the Royal workhorse. No matter how long the point, he is always running, often end zone to end zone. He has speed that is difficult to match, which makes him a favorite long receiver for the Royal. And lastly, number 77, Eric Dion, is an absolutely unflappable handler. Against double teams, traps on the sideline, outside the end zone in a hotly contested point, Eric is calm, collected, and will throw exactly the throw he wants to.
Well, they expect a huge crowd tonight here at Percival Molson Stadium, home of the Montreal Alouettes of the Canadian Football League. The Alouettes were actually in action this afternoon out in Calgary against the Stampeders. It was on in the pub that I had lunch. And the Alouettes were not doing too well at the time. Hopefully they came back to win it. This gorgeous facility, we get to come back, and the DC Breeze, their first appearance on ESPN3. The Breeze and the Empire will also be on next week. And in the Eastern Division right now, the Breeze and the New York Empire battling for that number 2 spot. And the ramifications of who finishes number 2 substantial as we eke toward the AUDL playoffs.
that number 2 spot is so coveted, not only because of the placement, but then they play the number 2 seeded team in the Midwest, which would be a much choicer opponent than playing the Toronto Rush.
They would likely be at home. DC has a huge weekend. They're in Montreal today. They're at New York tomorrow. Great to have you with us on ESPN3 as the Breeze begin with the disc. Jarnell Bourgeois, the primary center handler today without Alex Thorne. First cut hits Logan Ryan. He'll be one of the key deep threats without DiGirolamo. And a third Pittsburgh alum, Tyler Kunsa, is also not here with the Breeze today. Another key guy absent from the Breeze as they take their first deep shot. Looking to the end zone and in and out of the hands of Justin Solis. So Montreal forces a turnover. You mentioned DC's poor 2013 season. As soon as Alex Dutchy-Gesquier signed on to be the head coach, it was a complete change in credibility and perception for what this team has been. He's made an unbelievable difference bringing on players, instituting a strategy. However, Dutchy is not here today. So Paul Peak, a longtime coach and player in the D.C. area, current coach of the American University women's team. He's the sideline commander today for the Breeze. The Breeze are in the white now, defending the Royal, who are in the blue.
I've been talking a little bit more about Dutchy. It's amazing how many players on the DC Breeze signed on this year simply to work under a coach as intelligent as Dutchy.
It's Charles Barreteau hitting Philip Tivierge in the end zone, and the Royal begin with a break.
And of course, the famous Royal crowd going crazy. Evan, I remember our first game here, how exciting it was to watch a game with that kind of spectator support.
The Montreal Royal, one of the many inaugural franchises here in 2014. I don't think anybody in the league has done a better job than them at creating a game day atmosphere. 8 owners of this team all working hand in hand, and the infrastructure they've created in just one season is unbelievable. Chatting with Manuel, one of their key owners, talking about the plans for 2015 are already starting to come together, but they're expecting a big night tonight to wrap up this year, and a good start. Getting an early break. Now Antoine Genet to pull. Players from all across the Quebec province playing for this Montreal team. Montreal has gone 5-0 against Philadelphia and Rochester, but 0-7 versus Toronto, New York, and DC, the top 3. Played Toronto tough for 3 quarters in that first game, and played New York and DC very tough. Had leads in the fourth quarter against both of those teams on the road. Could not close it out. Another turnover from the Breeze. From a mental standpoint, this is going to be a fascinating weekend to watch DC, especially with the game they've got tomorrow. Montreal cannot haul it into the back of the end zone. It was Antoine Genet in and out of his grasp, and DC will collect possession. The Breeze traveled up from our nation's capital on 2 separate vans. One left earlier in the day yesterday, one left in the middle of the night, in part because Justin Solis was flying back from a business trip in St. Louis. His plane got delayed, so they had to wait for him. Didn't get into the Baltimore airport until around 2-3 a.m. DC holds on to the end zone and into the hands of Justin Solis, who looks well rested enough to make that play to tie things up at 1.
Those are the sorts of plays we're going to see a lot from Justin Solis. He's got incredible hands, and that heads-up awareness serves him incredibly well if the play doesn't go off exactly as planned. Bobbling a disc 9 out of 10 times, he's going to come down with it.
Antoine Genet crawling on his back, but Solis, who suffered a season-ending injury early in the 2013 campaign, but he's healthy now. Alex Gesquier says he's just one of the more tremendously underrated guys, not only on the Breeze, but in the AUDL. So in the East Division right now, it's Toronto still unbeaten. Montreal will play at Toronto in its final regular season game next weekend. But DC and New York battling for that 2 spot, and there's going to be a big difference between being the number 2 seed, likely a home game against the Indianapolis Alley Cats or the Chicago Wildfire, but it's looking like Indy, versus being the number 3, which will take you to Toronto against a team that has never lost. From the caverns of their end zone, turning it over. Eric Dion with a drop. Brett Matsuka picks up and a little short flip into the end zone. Daniel Selwyn has it for the score. The guy known as White Hat gives DC a 2-1 lead.
That's the second execution error we've seen from the Royal in their own end zone so far. We know from Michael Lacombe, the head coach for the Royal, this team can be a little heady. They need to calm themselves down, savor the disc when they have it right outside their end zone if they want to stand a chance against the DC Breeze. We know this is going to be a tight game. They can't afford to lose those discs, especially this early in the game.
No question about it. Daniel Selwyn wearing a black hat today, but he's been known for a long time as White Hat because when he started playing Ultimate at Towson, he was really only known as Daniel with the White Hat, and that name has stuck. Here's his 76th pull of the season. He's pulled more than anybody else on the Breeze, and he gets a good one about 5 yards deep into the Montreal end zone, fielded by Bruno Pierre Demers. Underneath, and the dropsies haunting Montreal early. Tim Sang, a local kid. He grew up in Vancouver and now goes to school here at McGill. Has played so many times on this field, an uncharacteristic mistake. So whereas it looked like Montreal was on the verge of going up 2-zip, traveling violation, and it'll be a turnover. This is a thrower travel, so Montreal will retake possession. 4 minutes gone here in the first. Demers over to Dion. Good handler cut. Demers absorbs contact. Underneath to Nicholas Vanas. To the end zone. What a layout. And Montreal is in. Tim Sang makes amends.
Showing just how valuable he is on the field. Primarily a handler, but what a great layout.
Tim Sang is such a slippery cutter. Really tough to stay with, shifty and small. He played on the Canadian U23 team, making plays like this. Félix-Antoine Daigle with the pull. Josh Norris with the disc. Cross midfield. Solis. Back to Bajwa. Swing cross field for John Stone. Norris up line, finding Stone. To the end zone, and DC is in. So it's Josh Norris, the former NC State Wolfpack player, up line into the end zone for the Breeze. Speaking of the Breeze, there's not very much of it here tonight in Montreal.
No, there is not, and that, of course, is going to impact how defense is played. When there's no Breeze, really you have a wider range of throws available to you. in the AUDL, the offense definitely has advantages with how wide the field is. That lack of breeze is going to make it even harder to play man-on-man defense.
We should clarify, meteorologically, that's a tough word to say. Meteorologically, there's no breeze. 7 on the line, though, wearing white.
Thank goodness you said that. I think people might have been confused.
Brett Matsuka, 45, really hustling down to cover this pull. Picks up the Montreal handler deep in the end zone. But the Royal escape. And this is Sang. Wide open underneath Vanas. Shooting it for Yolan Cabot. And now back to Sang. Looks like a pick call downfield. This throw's coming back. And it'll be a yardage penalty. The referee crew for this game, Lauren Beckman, the head ref, with Jacques Quentin, Vincent Drolet, and Ben Godin. Apologies for my poor French pronunciation.
I was just going to say it's impeccable, Evan.
I guess I don't know what impeccable means then.
Means you're doing great.
Cabot dumped it too far. Matsuka to pick up. He was recruited to the DC Breeze by his World Game Teams coach, Alex Gesquier, Dutchie. DC, deep shot, and a great catch in the end zone. And the Breeze have broken the Royale to take a 4-2 lead. AJ Jakoski in the end zone for DC. Matsuka was the last guy to join this DC team. They held that last roster spot for him. We were chatting with the owner, Don Gridge, before the game, and he basically said, you know, Dutchie kept telling me, hang on. We're going to... Matsuka was finishing up, defending his thesis, finishing up his PhD, and I think the day after he officially completed the PhD, he called the owner and said, I'm in. How do I fill out the contract? And it was certainly a big pickup for the Breeze D-line, and Matsuka stays out there. Another spectacular pull to the back of the end zone.
That just shows his passion when the day after defending his thesis, he's thinking about signing an AUDL contract.
Certainly passionate about Ultimate. Went to undergrad in Australia, then grad school at NC State. He's planning on commuting out to Boulder, Colorado to be part of Denver's Johnny Bravo in the club season. Cross field to the end zone again. And the Breeze are rolling here in Montreal, a 5-2 lead for the visitors.
The Royal are going to have to change something up on defense. Certainly not to detract from the throws that members of the DC Breeze have. But the Royal defense hasn't done much to stagnate the offensive flow of the DC Breeze. They've been able to put just about anything they want to with only a 1 or 2 second count look.
That was Russell Howd to Aaron Roberts. Well, really for this entire weekend, Megan, the key for the DC Breeze is to show off their depth. I think perhaps more than any other team in the league, DC is known because of its top 3 guys. And with 2 of those top 3 not here, Alex Thorne and Tyler DiGirolamo inactive this weekend, in Montreal on Saturday, at New York on Sunday, this is the time for the other guys to take advantage of the opportunity.
And talking with Logan and Brett before the game, they definitely sounded up to the task.
DC has played very aggressive defense after a sloppy first couple points. Cabot swings it back to the middle of the field for Demare. Dion has his flip D'd up. It's Sam Trachtman Originally from Newton, Mass. He went out west to play college. Now Matsuka, the hammer over the top. He drops it in perfectly. Ben Feng hauls in the score, and DC on a 6-1 run.
That turn from the Royal was simply a timing error. The throw to Tim just hung a little too long. It's why the Breeze were able to get in there and get that D. And then you turn and look at Matsuka's throw. Like I said earlier, the perfect timing to allow the space and the timing for his player to go and get it.
Beautiful put from Matsuka. Mikel Lacombe, the head coach of Montreal, has seen enough. The Royal trailing by 4 early. We're back to Montreal in a moment.
He's coming down the ice. He's coming around the net. Centering pass. Oh, look at this. A break for Canada. He shoots. He scores. Canada wins in overtime. Canada back on top of the world.
Fantastic crowd on hand as usual here at Percival Molson Stadium on the campus of McGill University in the beautiful city of Montreal. The home fans, while they're still rowdy, have not had as much to cheer for as they might have hoped, as Washington, D.C.'s Breeze has scored 6 of the first 8 points. This is D.C.'s first trip up to Montreal. They went up to Toronto earlier this year, also without Thorne and DiGirolamo, and got beat pretty good, 27-17. DC team planning to stay overnight tonight here in Montreal and take the 5-6 hour trek to New York tomorrow. Certainly a tough, grueling weekend schedule. Welcome to life in professional ultimate.
Absolutely. We talk about how it must be easier to play in the AUDL because you have 1 game a day, but that certainly doesn't account for the travel that these teams have to undergo just to get to that 1 game.
In the NBA, they talk about the back-to-backs and the second days of the back-to-backs, 3 out of 4. It's a completely different game on your legs. Sang scoobers it over the top. Montreal just isn't creating much space downfield right now. Layout D, but into the hands of Demare. Demare wants the deep shot. This is going to hang up, 50-50 disc. And Montreal comes down with it. Yolan Cabot, after Ben Feng mistimed his leap.
Lucky break for the Royal. This is, as I mentioned earlier, something that's been plaguing the Royal throughout this season. Their longer throws oftentimes hang just a little too long, giving the defense plenty of time to get in there. Here we see Feng go up just a touch too early, giving Cabot a free play on that disc.
Bruno Pierre Demers. He's really improved his conditioning over the past 4 or 5 months, become a steady handler, got fortunate on that flick. Well, our Twitter question today, we'd like to know what you think in regards to what city should join the AUDL next year. What expansion city would you like to see in the AUDL in 2015? Let us know at Evan Lepler, at Migels000, hashtag AUDL expansion. It's been a grand success here in Montreal. And after a quick forced turnover, the Royal have scored 2 in a row. Félix-Antoine Degla. Just like that, the Royal have cut their 4-point deficit in half. Here's the turnover. And really not great awareness from Bajois. A simple poach made by Jean-Lévis Champagne.
It'll be interesting to see, Evan, if this gives them the momentum that they need to tie up this game. We've seen Montreal play very hotly contested games before. We've seen them keep up with their opponent. One thing I haven't seen the Royal do is come back from behind. So it'll be interesting to see if they can do that against the DC Breeze tonight.
Degler with the pull. Well, when these two teams met on the University of Maryland campus in College Park, the Royal had a 17-12 lead in the third quarter. And the DC owner told us he looked up at the scoreboard and wondered, how in the world are we going to overcome a 5-score deficit? And there's another mistake from the Breeze, right through the hands of the intended target. Initiating from the sideline, Gustavo Castaño with about a 35-yard swing. Boucher gets his break to the end zone. 3 straight for the Royal. Barreto picks up his second assist. Antoine Genet hauls it in. It's just side-to-side ultimate. Swing one way, break to the other. And once Boucher gets his break off, this is an easy finish.
That's right. As a defender, it's hard to do 50-yard sprints over and over and over. But if you have one player who's open on the break side, that inside output opens everything up for you.
Whatever Mikel Lacombe said during the timeout, bottle that baby up. Matsuka playing the O-point. Knew that was more of a possibility, even though he's typically played more defensive points. Good hustle underneath, but into the hands of Solis. And now Matsuka to the brink of the end zone and in. The score from John Stone, the Asheville, North Carolina native, finishes the point and squelches the DC or the Montreal 3-zip run.
It's worth mentioning, Evan, that the Royal as a team are older than the DC Breeze. They have a number of players in their 30s. They have a player who's in his 40s. The DC Breeze primarily mid to lower 20s. That's going to play a huge part in this game and whether or not they can keep up this intensity for the entire game.
Certainly the youth and athleticism probably on DC's side. The score, DC 7, Montreal 5. We'll get that corrected on the bottom of our screen. 7-5 in favor of Washington, D.C. Wide open deep. Looking for Vanas. And he's got it. Sometimes a double team or a poach can really cost you.
Yeah, beautiful put from Cantone, but you're absolutely right, Evan. It's easy to make a throw look that nice when your player is all alone.
4 or 5 white jerseys chasing him down, wondering whose man is that? (7-6) now. The Breeze will receive the pull. Nicolas Brochu will let it fly. Pull of about 78, 79 yards. And a quick strike, looking deep. There is some contact, and it will stay with DC. It looked like Philip Tivierge got his guy in the arm. That's pass interference. And Liam Schramko will have the disc on the goal line. Montreal trying to double team. Hammer to the end zone. He rushed it, but it was still placed perfectly. And Brad Scott has the score for the Breeze. Brad Scott, one of the younger guys. He's just 21 years old, native of Frederick, Maryland. Well, Schramko got his hand on the disc first there. Do you think that was a foul?
Seeing that once, yeah, I do think it was a foul. It looked like he almost knocked it out of his hands.
Great kid zone here at Percival Molson Stadium. They look like they're having fun.
Another great idea from the Royal franchise is to have this kids station at the back of the end zone every single game.
Selwyn's pull soars out the back of the end zone. He just threw that more than 90 yards in the air. DC plays on a smaller field, the University of Maryland Field Hockey Complex. Smaller, different type of turf. Only turf cleats and tennis shoes are allowed, not normal soccer cleats. Here in Montreal, because of the goalposts at the end zones of the Canadian football field, they have shortened the regulation size 80-yard field into a 70-yard field with the 20-yard end zones at the back. So there's still not 100% uniformity around the league. It does present different challenges for the road team and creates something of a home field advantage wherever you go.
The most dramatic, I think, has to be the DC Breeze
Yeah.
Stadium. I can't imagine what it's like to not playing cleats.
We'll find out next week.
I'll be sure to bring my turf shoes.
You don't want to get in trouble going on your normal cleats. Royale turn it over. Dion could not lay out to come up with it. Selwyn begins the offensive attack. Now Selwyn again, shooting one to Matsuka. What a shot. DC leads 9-6 with 13 seconds left in the quarter.
DC is doing an excellent job utilizing these cross-field, almost bladey throws. It does a lot to shorten the time you're out on the field and gives you a number of different looks because you can put it around or over the other players to get it into the end zone very easily.
It's funny, it's Selwyn who hits Matsuka here, but this is a vintage Brett Matsuka type throw. That high release bladey flick placed perfectly. Just right over the top of Tim Sang, who's a pretty strong defender, but he had no chance. So 13 seconds left in the quarter. These end of quarter situations are one of my favorite aspects of the AUDL. Forcing coaches to be methodical. And in the AUDL, you are allowed to mack the disc into the end zone. A mack does not constitute possession. Time winding down. This will be a buzzer beater. And it's incomplete. Good defense by DC. A swarm of Breeze in the end zone. And while Montreal got off to the quick start, it was DC that controlled the first quarter of action. 9-6, the Breeze lead on the road. Not a bad put. He gave everybody a shot.
Certainly, and in general, I would say Montreal had a lot to learn about end-of-quarter situations, as we saw in their very first game earlier this season. They've done a lot of work to adjust, which all inaugural teams have to, but they've done a great job practicing that so far this season.
1 down, 3 to go here in Montreal. After 12 minutes, the Breeze lead 9-6. We're back to Percival Molson Stadium in a moment.
Yeah, it's a Zipcar. I don't own it, I just use it when I need it. Zipcar has thousands of cars parked all over the city, even 2 on my block. You can use one for an hour or for a day. And Zipcar pays for gas and insurance. It's easy.
Go to Zipcar.com to get your Zipcard, the key to vehicles parked in your neighborhood and across the globe. For work or play, find a Zipcar near you, book it,
And before you know it, you're on the road.
cars by the hour or day, gas and insurance included. Join for as little as $6 per month at Zipcar.com.
Well, if Montreal needs energy, the fans should help provide it. But in the first quarter, the DC Breeze showed up and made an early statement. We'll jump into these first quarter highlights. Megan, the Montreal Royal began this game with a break. But really, since then, DC has taken control. That was a chance for Janae to make it 3-1. Tim Sang, the layout score. But Brett Matsuka has certainly made an impact. And really, at no point in that first quarter did you think to yourself, man, they really miss Tyler, or Alex. Not to say it wouldn't be nice to have them.
Certainly, as the coaching staff undoubtedly hoped, there are players on the Breeze who are stepping up, rising to the occasion, showing that they don't need those 2 players to be here for them to secure a win.
An up-line shot for Félix-Antoine Daigle. And that came off the break. Barreto to Genet in the end zone. But offsides called on the initial pull, so Montreal will suffer the consequences of that. I beg your pardon, DC will suffer the consequences of that. Matsuka, Jakoski, Nam, Selwyn among the defenders for the DC Breeze. Second quarter underway here at Percival Molson Stadium. Percival Molson, the great-grandson of John Molson. The Molson most people probably know because he is the guy that made the beer. Percival Molson was a great student athlete from McGill University in the early 1900s. Deep shot defended in the end zone by the Breeze. A chance here. Cantone could not come up with it, and it was Brad Scott doing the defending in the end zone. Dangerous swing. Now up line Matsuka. He's got a target, but he looked him off. Smart, patient play by Matsuka. Contact on Montreal, and Selwyn will advance 10 yards. Now just 10 yards away from the goal line. Lefty backhand over the top. That was clever. Matsuka breaks his mark. Now Ryan Nam back to Selwyn. Dropping the hammer for the score. The Breeze break to begin the second, and it's 10-6 DC.
The Royal defense looked a little tighter that point, but the DC Breeze have been throwing every throw in their arsenal so far this game. That's incredibly hard to defend when you're man.
Great patience here. And Selwyn delivers on target. Last year, Daniel Selwyn, so many touches of the disc for this DC team. He led the AUDL in completions for the season. 27-year-old out of Towson. Toronto Rush with a 5-score lead early over the Rochester Dragons. A game you would expect the undefeated champs to take care of business in. In the 80s here in Quebec, not much wind at all as we play on this Saturday night, the final Saturday in June. To the end zone and jumping too early. It's an incomplete shot. Francois Xavier Haught. They call him FX for short.
Which I appreciate. Francois Xavier's kind of a mouthful.
So Matsuka has just been a magician leading this D-line so far. Ben Feng, the underneath cutter, draws contact. He quickly advances 10. The Breeze continuing to keep their foot on the gas. And what a low hammer. That disc basically was parallel to the ground, completely upside down, and hovered with great rotation. This is danger territory for the Royale. DC knocking on the door again. And a contact call made. Matsuka zips it in there. Largest lead yet for the DC Breeze. 11-6 here in the second.
Before the game started, Evan, we were watching the Royale play some sort of dodgeball on the field, just getting into the mood, having fun. But it looks like the DC Breeze are enjoying this game a little bit more.
Well, here's the dodgeball before the game. This looked like fun. Royale not enjoying the actual contest as much. Really not doing much defensively. Any DC turnover has been inflicted by DC, as opposed to the Montreal Royal imposing its own will. Jose Maldonado found just a small crevice in that defense, and that was all the space Matsuka needed to chisel that flick into the end zone. Gustavo Castaño, originally from Colombia. He was a happy fellow before the game today. The Colombian soccer team. I know they had a 2-0 lead on Uruguay into the knockout round of the World Cup. An amazing shootout thriller between Brazil and Chile earlier today. The Brazilians advancing by the width of a goalpost to the end zone. There was contact, and there was no call. It's an incompletion. So DC will take over with the disc, and who else? Brett Matsuka. Went to the University of Queensland in Brisbane, Australia, 2004-2007. Don't think the AUDL has the means to expand to Brisbane just yet, but who knows what one day this league could be. What American or Canadian city would you like to see the AUDL expanded to next year? Brisbane's off the table, folks.
Yeah.
Even though I would love to travel there for a game.
I wouldn't mind traveling there for a game, but I would feel too sorry for the players.
My choice for AUDL expansion, by the way, is Honolulu. Maui would be nice, too. Create the Hawaiian division. DC, deep for Nam. Ryan Nam, a guy that everybody on the Breeze has talked about as just Mr. Versatility. No matter what role they put him in, he has been able to deliver the goods. Matt Ratty hits Nam. Was open for a moment and then goes and gets the disc anyway, leaving Niklas Vanas in the dust. So this has to be a little bit of a shock for Montreal. And DC, a team that was trailing most of its first meeting against Montreal, couldn't have expected to come out and just dictate its will like this, 12-6. I mean, this has been a blowout so far. What can Montreal do? How can they tighten things up defensively and take care of the disc better?
On offense, they need to use their experience more to their advantage. I feel like we've seen them make very safe decisions, but almost gently so, which is why the DC Breeze is able to D all of their long or even not so long throws. There's just not enough zing. There's not enough put on those throws. Defensively, they need to take throws away from the DC Breeze. Right now we're seeing over-the-top blades. We're seeing hammers either put a straight-up force or decide we are going to force hard home, hard away. Right now, the Breeze have too many options at their disposal.
I think we may have a clock timing issue. That's the reason for the delay. I don't know if we can get a shot while we're waiting of the far right end zone. They're getting ready to play sumo soccer here at halftime, and the kids that are starting to don these blow-up sumo costumes, pretty ridiculous. We'll get you a peek of that in just a bit. Now Boucher puts it back into play, hits Maxime Guy, up line into the hands of Yohan Cabot. And now Boucher again. DC really providing pressure on the underneath defenders, underneath cutters, I should say, and it's a stall count charge to Montreal, and that's a turnover. Selwyn picks up. Easy underneath for Jackowski. Norris to Selwyn. To the end zone. And the Breeze do it again. Alex Jackowski, I know him as AJ, makes it 13-6. Jackowski played 3 years, played 5 years for Salisbury University, a 3-year captain for that team. The Royal wanted to finish their season strong at home, but so far, through a quarter and a half, it is all DC. 13-6. The Breeze lead the Royal. Timeout.
I missed my graduation to practice. I sleep so we could drill. I missed anniversary, Father's Day, Mother's Day, Valentine's Day. I missed some playing place. I even missed my parents' anniversary. I missed a lot.
Welcome back to Montreal in the great Canadian province of Quebec. Well, at halftime, these will be some of the competitors in the sumo soccer game. And if we can continue to pan further right, you will see the sumo soccer suits. The inflatable. Basically, every player becomes Violet Beauregard, the blueberry from the original Gene Wilder, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And she did not move too well unless there was an Oompa Loompa rolling her.
That's a great reference, Evan.
Well, for the DC Breeze, if you want to view paradise, simply look around and view it. 13-6 they lead with 6:04 to go here in the second quarter. It's been a while since the DC offense has been on the field. It was 9-6 at the end of one, a 4-0 run so far to begin the second quarter of action. Big layout, just eludes the DC handler defender. That was Matt Ratty. You know, we talked to Mikel Lacombe, the coach of the Royal, before the game. Hammer for the end zone, and the Royal get one. A much-needed shot into the hands of FX Hot. In talking to Mikel Lacombe, we asked him, who's the best player on your team? And he has a hard time pinpointing an answer. In this day and age, do you need to know who your best player is? Perhaps on your O-line and on your D-line. Do you need to have an alpha dog, do you think?
No, I don't. I think, in fact, it's better when you don't necessarily have one, because then it becomes an entire team effort. Then your team feels this sort of collective responsibility to get the job done. When you have a standout player, sometimes it's easy to let that player take charge, take over, and if anything happens to that player, you're not certain of your team's success. The DC Breeze, of course, proving me entirely wrong by playing as well as they are today without their top two players.
Looks like we might have another offsides call here. But at the same time, Montreal is in a spot at this point, you know, down 13-6, now 13-7. They need somebody to step up. They need somebody to make something happen. I think it was an offensive offside called on the DC Breeze, and therefore Montreal is going to pull again. Or are they just going to give DC the disc in the back of their end zone? Looks like it's the latter. So middle of the end zone, center of the field, Jarnell Bajwa. Forced backhand by Jerome Boucher. It's amazing how the good teams never look even 1% rattled when they're at the back of their own end zone. And you can see that polish on this DC team, something that for sure they didn't have last year. Lost a lot of close games and didn't have the firepower and the depth from 1 to 20 on game day that they have in 2014.
You're right. It's been amazing watching the DC make this transformation, and I think even with the fighting power they added to their team this year, it's been fun watching them evolve and develop over the course of the season. They're starting to peak at exactly the right time.
Josh Norris finds John Stone. Norris again bumped. Stall count was rising there, and Charles Barateau basically surrenders 10 yards and resets the stall count. All the way cross field, Jarnell Bajwa. Up in the air. Oh, just in and out of the hands. Incomplete. That could have been a highlight reel grab for the Breeze. This will float. Barreto comes down with it. Closing in on 3:30 remaining here in the second quarter of action. The Royale trying to score back-to-back points after a long DC run. Barreto looking for Cabot, too far ahead. There's been very little sizzle so far today for the Montreal offense. And DC will take a timeout, looking to go 70 yards for the score to double up the Montreal Royal 14-7. A 6-score game at the moment. 3 minutes to go here in the second quarter in Montreal.
He's coming down the ice. He's coming around the net. Centering pass. Oh, look at this. A break for Canada. He shoots. He scores. Canada wins in overtime. Canada back on top of the world.
A huge weekend for the DC Breeze. They're off to a good start with the disc. 3:09 to go second quarter. DC will play at New York tomorrow. DC has 3 more meetings with New York tomorrow, next week, and then the following week as well. Next week's game on Saturday, July 5th, can be seen on ESPN3. With the stall count rising, he finds the safety valve, Peter Anderson. No mark as a result of the layout. The Breeze reset to the middle. After a couple miscues early, been really impressed by this DC offense, and understandably, they look pretty well rested. Nam, pretty throw over the top to switch fields. This is Stone. Underneath, nice use of the body to shield the defender away. Solis making the up line cut. He drew the attention, and that's incomplete in the end zone. Just a drop from Liam Schramko. Not the easiest catch in the world, but certainly one he expects to make.
Especially given how he had already dug his body underneath the disc.
Montreal. Big sky from Sean St. John Timmins. And Tseng, he finishes it off. The punt spike will get the crowd into it. 93 seconds to go first half. And the Royale have their play of the day so far. There's a heck of a sky from Sean St. John Timmins. Jerome Boucher, the put. Sized it up the entire time and elevated when necessary. We had 15 total scores in the first quarter, only 6 so far in the second. DC with a 4-2 lead, but Montreal has scored 2 in a row after the Breeze scored the first 4. Selwyn with a smooth upline cut. Stahl. 1 minute to go. Royal have the disc. Brochu picks up. Jean-Lévis Champagne with a big backhand. The Royal have scored 3 in a row. Perhaps a little more air than Jean-Lévis wanted on that backhand. Matsuka looking to poach, but in the end zone, hauled in by Félix-Antoine Daigle. So the Royal making a little run here in the final minutes of the second quarter. Daigle with the pull. 38 seconds here in the first half. In Pro Ultimate, so many more points in a game expands the role of strategy and coaching and substitutions. Contact. Clock continues to roll. 10 seconds in the half. Through the double team. 4 seconds. Scuber. Into the end zone. What a catch. A corkscrew catch from John Stone. Beautiful way to finish that point, and Brad Scott found him. Perfect shot to finish the first half for DC. Scoreboard shows less than 1 second left. I believe that's 7/10 that we've got on the clock. Barely enough time to catch it and take a deep shot. Well, this Washington, D.C. team has only lost twice all season. Have not officially clinched a playoff spot yet. A win today would do that. Don't believe this is going to count. DC takes care of it anyway. The DC Breeze lead the Montreal Royal 14-9. Real impressive performance from the Breeze without the 3 Pittsburgh fellows, DiGirolamo, Thorne, and Kunsa, all 2-time college champs in the USAU College Series. They are all at a wedding this weekend, but perhaps they're getting a chance to watch some of their team on ESPN3 take care of business on the road. A 5-point lead. The DC Breeze lead 14-9, and we will come back to Percival Molson Stadium in Montreal after this.
I missed my graduation. asleep so we could drill. I missed anniversary, Father's Day, Mother's Day, Valentine's Day. I missed the final exam.
I missed some coin play. I even missed my parents' anniversary. I missed a lot.
Yeah, it's a zip car. I don't own it, I just use it when I need it. Zipcar has thousands of cars parked all over the city, even 2 on my block. You can use one for an hour or for a day. And Zipcar pays for gas and insurance. It's easy.
Go to zipcar.com to get your zip card, the key to vehicles parked in your neighborhood and across the globe. For work or play, find a zip car near you, book it,
And before you know it, you're on the road.
cars by the hour or day, gas and insurance included.
Join for as little as $6 per month at zipcar.com.
A 5-score game, the DC Breeze leading the home-standing Montreal Royal. The fans here at Percival Molson Stadium still having a blast, having a drum line, creating the energy doesn't hurt either. One of the key players to DC's run in that first half was the D-line handler Brett Matsuka, and he is down on the field with Megan Tormey.
Thanks so much, Evan. Brett, amazing first half. This is your ESPN3 debut, even though it's week 12, but talk to us a little bit about the work that has gone on so far this season to get you to this point.
We've been doing track workouts, things that normal teams do. We focus primarily just on the process, send a lot of emails, work individually, and just committing to the team aspect, playing together. Nothing different from anyone else. So.
Yeah, you guys have been geographically challenged, and you also have a lot of players who haven't played together. How has it been developing the chemistry?
It's been a lot of fun, actually. A lot of us are really excited just to be here and experience the new culture, new team. Dutchie's really done well, and the coaching staff in general, to bring us together and keep our eye on the prize. We're focusing primarily on leading the league and in high fives, so we feel that's always helping us stay in the right place mentally.
It seems to be working. What else is working for you guys so far in this first half?
Primarily our focus has been on just shutting down their handler movement. We want to really force the ball to go laterally or backwards and prevent upfield throws to really cause a rift between the downfield and the handler sets.
But even offensively, you guys are looking strong, despite the fact that you're missing 2 of your top players. Is this something you talked about? Is this something you worked on, or is this just the DC Breeze?
A bit of both. We have a lot of people that are willing to step up into new and different roles every game. Really excited to just diversify and versatile team. So whenever we know we're going to face challenges personnel-wise, we're very committed to just doing what's necessary to get the W or achieve the success in whatever process we're trying to do.
And what, if anything, are you going to change this second half?
We're going to focus. I think we're mentally slipping a bit. We're getting a little casual with it. So we're gonna amp up the energy. Focus again on just the simple things, execution and disciplined play, patience mainly. On defense, just intensity and sticking to the process. Process is always the thing. Our team animal is Prairie Dog, and we make sure to always focus on kind of being wily, gritty, but together.
And one more question. I know you need to get back to your team, but everyone's eyes are on the playoffs right now, and you have some big games against the New York Empire. Are you talking at all about that? What are your plans to win those 2 games?
I feel like I should bring out every sports cliche possible. It's one game at a time. We're focusing on ourselves. I honestly treat every game we get to play together as a blessing. It's great to have the fellowship and camaraderie. So every game is just a chance to be together. It's going to be fun. The challenges the teams bring against us push us to become better as individuals and as a team, and that's what the league's about. Spreading love through hard, respectful play.
Love your attitude. Thank you so much,
Thanks,
Brett.
Megan.
Go be with your team, and good luck the second half.
Farewell.
And we'll take a quick break, and then I'll interview Jean-Levy Champagne.
I missed my graduation, practice, asleep so we could drill. I missed anniversary, Father's Day, Mother's Day, Valentine's Day. I missed the final exam.
I missed some coin play. I even missed my parents' anniversary. I missed a lot.
All right, thank you. We're back with Jean-Lévis Champagne. Jean-Lévis, your franchise has really set the bar for other franchises and future franchises. Talk to us a little bit about how the season has gone for you guys. We haven't seen you since your first home game.
It has gone well. The fan followed us all season long. We had an average of 1,000 people in the crowd, so that's really good for us. On the field, we didn't win the game we wanted to win. That's a bit of a difficulty for us, but 24 minutes less, we're going to try to get this one for sure.
And I'm sure everyone's curious, what are you working on for next year? What can we expect from the Montreal Royal in 2015?
We don't know. Maybe getting an international player. No, I don't know. We're working a lot in Quebec on the players in Quebec, trying to develop all the kids, the players. We want the stream to go up to the Royal, so we're working on that a lot. Other than that, we'll try to put the game experience as much better every time we can, so the fans follow us. The city of Montreal come to our game as well. We want to fill the stadium up, so 25,000 seats. That's a lot of work for sure.
Yeah, regardless of what happens, we'll all be very excited to watch. Let's touch briefly upon this game right now. What needs to change? What needs to happen for the Royal in the second half?
We need to make our point on offense. That's it. We get this back on D. We need to keep the defense on the field. Really hard for us. Our decisions are not so good right now, so we should work on that. Value the disc a bit more and keep the D-line on the field. I think we can do it. Our defense has made a comeback, so we think we can do it for sure.
All right, well, we're excited to watch the rest of this game. Good luck. Go be with your team, and we'll talk after the game.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we're going to take a look at the league highlights.
Deep defense, but he quickly recovers and Drew's with a lay on D. He'll pick it up and throw immediately to the end zone. That'll be good. The disc, and you can't. Now the shot goes off. Grappy gets up, comes down with the disc.
started. He was excited. Oh, what a D, or what a score from New York. Great job reading the disc in the end zone. And New York ties it up after a marathon with 8th point, that first looking deep. A lot of float under this one. Ojo getting ready to climb. Falling last weekend to DC. Big layout to keep that disc alive. Deep shot high in the air. Joe Babino could not come down with it. But there may have been a foul, and there was. Powell. Full extension. Powell. Full extension to keep the possession alive. And what a D from New York. Sam Taylor lays out and knocks it down to the umpire. Taylor throw. Gets past one layout into the hands of another. Taylor Brooks, the recipient of the New York score. Defended well by Ben Ivers. Lloyd sends the deep shot for Lindquist, and Jeff Lindquist over the top. And if you thought Ultimate was a new great sport of the future, perhaps you haven't seen sumo soccer here in Montreal. These are members of the junior boys and girls Canadian Ultimate national team. And the best part is when they fall down, it's really hard for them to get up. So once you're down, it takes a while. Hey, there's a goal. This is tremendous. The halftime score here in the AUDL Showcase Game of the Week, 14-9, DC leads Montreal. Not sure the score of this sumo soccer match. It looks like we're going to have some substitutions. Down in the field, they'll get situated, while up in the booth, we'll get situated with the owner of the DC Breeze, Don Grade. Don, thanks for joining us. What a half for your team. You've seen every point your team's played this year. Where does that half stack up?
I have seen every point so far, and I have to say this is definitely one of the most impressive halves we've had. And Montreal is a very impressive team. As most people know, we had an incredible game with them back in DC, and a 1-point difference at home made for a pretty scary goings-on up here in Montreal. And so far, I'm pretty happy with where we are.
You know, you must have anticipated a close game after what happened against these guys at your place. In your opinion, when everything's going well for your team, who's making the plays and what goes right to have everything go right?
Wow, I think it's, pretty much everybody on the team does a fantastic job. I mean, we have our go-to guys, and there are main handlers, as you would normally expect, and then you've got your cutters, and we have, as you know, as most people have seen so far, we're missing a couple of our big stars, Tyler DiGirolamo on cutting and Alex Thorne on the handling, and but so far we haven't skipped a beat, and that's what one important thing we wanted to show people tonight is on ESPN. Without two of our big name players, we are not a two-player team. We have a whole bunch of studs on both sides.
You've been playing Ultimate for a long time. Started playing at 18 years of age in California, then came to the DC area. Take us through, for you, when becoming an Ultimate Frisbee owner really became a possibility in your mind.
It became a possibility, honestly, about 3 weeks before I signed the dotted line and became a half owner. It's been a whirlwind since last November, and I owe it to the AUDL for putting something together that I, from a financial and business standpoint, was interested in investing in, and for bringing a sport that I think has always been underexposed, always had a great chance to be a spectator sport, and to help bring that up to this level and take it to where it is. And then I can't say enough about my co-owner, Aaron Foreman, who got through the 2013 season. And frankly, I don't know how anybody could get through an AUDL season as an owner alone. He had his wife and family and so forth, but without another co-owner that had his own network. I'm very impressed with what he did to get it to the off season and to and what he's been doing to help me at this point. So it's been a great relationship with him, and I'm thrilled to be part of it, and I'm thrilled to be part of the AUDL and to have a co-owner and somebody that I can trust and like to work with. And this team, I mean, what else can you say about our team and where we are and where we might get to go still this year.
Obviously, it starts at the top with the owners, but you're only as good as your head coach in many situations. Alex Gesquier, Dutchie, chatted with him earlier this week, and he said that you reached out to him, you met for a beer to talk about what he could bring to the team and what you would want from him. What was your sales pitch to him, arguably one of the best coaches in Ultimate in the world right now?
Well, first of all the greatest and most important business meetings happen over beer, I think. So, of course, that's what I offered the first time I got to meet him. And really, I have to say the sales pitch was that there is a whole new vision and a whole new momentum, and that we have some big moves already happening. By the time I talked to Dutchie, I had already gotten Alex and Ty on board, and that just explained to Dutchie, and he agreed that him coming on board too was yet another huge step in the right direction, and that he would be a fundamental part of a big program, and something that is going to make things happen in the AUDL. And I think he was excited about the pro game as a new challenge. He's as you know, he's done amazing things at every other level.
What's impressed you the most about how he coaches when you get to see him up close?
He is so incredibly calm and at the same time so in control, and that's what impresses me the most. He always knows what to do, but he never has to make a huge deal about anything. And the players just they follow pretty much everything he says, and they so believe in him. And I think it's because of his approach, because he's strategic, he's calm, and he knows what to do, and he gets it done.
An amazing career. He led Revolver to a national title, a world championship title, led Scandal to a national title, trying to lead them to Worlds this August, also trying to lead DC to an AUDL title. The logistics of being an owner and certain things like crossing the Canadian border, always you have some unique encounters. Tell us about your drive to Montreal this weekend and what happened at the Canadian border.
Yes, sir. It wasn't too big of a deal, but it was fun. We typically with large cars, sometimes large vehicles, sometimes you get pulled over to the side so they can check passports, get out of the car, and that sort of thing. And while we were doing that, naturally, I've got a bunch of Ultimate players with me. They decided they needed to throw the disc around a bit. So they went out into the road right in front of the customs windows and started throwing the disc around. And so it didn't take long before some very heavily armed woman came out, dressed in her bulletproof vest and everything else, and could not believe we had the nerve to throw a Frisbee around right in front of customs in the road. So we stopped. She walked away, and about 15 minutes later, we were getting back into the vehicles and getting ready to go, and she walked by, so I decided I should offer to teach her how to throw a flick.
How'd she feel about that?
She was not too excited about it, and she was actually a little bit appalled. It was a little disappointing that there was no humor whatsoever in that comment to her.
What'd she say to you?
She said, I cannot believe you are joking with me. I am an armed officer of Border Patrol, and I am still an officer, and I'm still on duty since the last time I talked to you, and this is a little bit shocking.
Maybe on the drive to New York tomorrow, you can meet her up and teach her how to throw a scuba or something.
I think I will give it a try. If I see her, I can always try one more time and hope not to be arrested.
Next week, as we wrap things up, ESPN3 comes to College Park, Maryland, home of the DC Breeze. Playoff push continues against the New York Empire. What are you most excited about in terms of having ESPN3 and having this sort of second place chase continue next Saturday at your place?
I think the most exciting thing is going to be what's on the field. We have some incredible competition in New York, Toronto, and Montreal, and even you've seen that we've even had some close games against Rochester and Philadelphia. I mean, it's a good division of very good Ultimate players, and I just can't wait to see what happens on the field tomorrow and then next week, and we'll see what happens.
Don Grage, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
That's the owner of the DC Breeze. We're lucky to have guys like him in this league. His team is up 14-9 as I double-check the scoreboard here at Percival Molson Stadium. Megan Tormey rejoins me. We'll check out some of the first half highlights as we continue from Montreal in a moment.
He's coming down the ice. He's coming around the net. Centering pass. Oh, look at this. A break for Canada. He shoots.
AUDL is pleased to announce its support of Women in Ultimate, an initiative that raises funds for the organization Without Limits, which exposes and connects young women to competitive ultimate. It's an exciting time for Ultimate, and this organization is helping women grow in involvement in this amazing sport. Let's take a look at a message from Women in Ultimate and learn how you can support.
A group of players from several Bay Area club teams are joining together to raise awareness and funds for Michelle Ng's Without Limits organization. So why is Without Limits important?
Two teams that have been attending the majority of Michelle's tournaments and events both blew up at college nationals.
Nobody had really done a skills clinic and bringing other coaches in. And so you could just walk around and you hear little snippets of like, Gwen Ambler taught me how to sky for discs, and I totally did that. Dom taught me how to pull, or Chelsea Putnam taught me how to play defense, or Kara Crouch taught me how to cut.
She runs excellent tournaments. Despite all of the tragedies that happen to her tournaments, she still runs excellent tournaments, and people expect it and really appreciate it.
So why are we running a fundraiser for Michelle and Without Limits?
She has a lot of emotional support, but she doesn't have a lot of financial or actual physical support.
There hasn't been that step to take, that thing to do, other than, I know Michelle, I want to help her out.
Michelle has run a total of 60 tournaments and clinics and mentored 50 teams in the span of 4 years at Without Limits. If you have been looking for a way to support Women's Ultimate, this is your chance. Help us raise awareness by sharing this video on Facebook and Twitter, purchasing a Without Limits tank illustrated by Abby Van Mugen, or volunteering at one of Michelle's upcoming tournaments. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the field.
Without Limits is such an exciting organization. It has done so much for young women across the U.S. Women in Ultimate is a great fundraising initiative that's going to help Without Limits continue their work. You can show your support by logging on to www.womeninultimate.com.
We'll jump into these first half highlights. The Montreal Royal trailing by 5. The owner of the DC Breeze, for good reasons, in a pretty good mood with the way his team played. Montreal had some opportunities early, but Antoine Genet could not haul that one in. It's a great field level angle that we've got. Tim Sang with a nice layout, and I think DC was simply the more steady team. Would you agree?
Absolutely. From the very start, they looked like they had control of what they wanted to do offensively and defensively. As you mentioned, Montreal had a couple of early opportunities to keep the score close, but a few execution errors, both on throws and reception, cost them the ability to keep that gap narrow. All the same, I think the Breeze have so much going for them in this game that even those couple of points might not have been the difference maker for the Royale.
Well, we saw DC overcome a 5-point deficit against the Royale in Maryland in the first meeting, so they're obviously not going to rest on their laurels with a 5-score lead at the break. But Brett Matsuka and company certainly very experienced as a squad. And if you're Montreal, this is your chance to leave everything on the field. Unlike DC, you do not have a game tomorrow. You have a game next week against Toronto. You'll worry about that perhaps on Monday. For tonight, it's all about DC. And in your mind, if you're in the locker room, what are you saying to the Royale? Is it as simple as, guys, just calm down and let's do what we know how to do?
I think they need to work out a few finer points. It's not simply mental errors that are costing this game for the Royale. As we talked about earlier, their marks are simply not tight enough to stop the DC from throwing the gauntlet of throws that they've been throwing. And then offensively, of course, we need to see their timing on those longer throws improve so that DC does not have the opportunity to catch up and take the disc as they have time and time again. So while mentally calming down will certainly aid the Royale in their effort, there are actual changes that they can make that will give them a shot at this game.
Well, out of these highlights, we'll hopefully take a look at the East Division standings just to show you where these two teams stack up and specifically where DC stands compared to New York. The Empire losing 2 games in a row last week, falling in Toronto the week before, losing at DC. Talking to some of the Montreal guys, I think they were a little surprised that DC beat New York. They played them back-to-back a few weeks ago, and the consensus was New York might be a little bit stronger. that New York DC game marred by some officiating questions, and New York wasn't expecting the smaller field and the cleat restrictions. They easily admit that we did not play our best game. We didn't have as much fun as we needed to. They got in our heads a little bit. How do you've seen DC in person for a half and watched a ton of film. You've seen New York in person. How would you handicap that race?
Having watched DC for the first time today, I am amazed at how well they work together, and I think that offensive flow is going to serve them well. Put Tyler DiGirolamo back on the field, and that's going to be really quite an advantage for the DC Breeze. However, New York Empire also have some star power that do well as individuals and coalescing as a team. For that reason, I think that this matchup is going to continue to be very exciting.
Well, New York and DC have 3 more meetings, the first of which is tomorrow. While we're here, let's take a look in the Midwest Division with Madison up top. They've already clinched. Chicago and Indy are neck and neck, but Indianapolis is in position to overtake Chicago and be the 2 seed. Indianapolis with 1 more game against Detroit, and then the rematch, or the replay of the game that got rained and lightninged out against Minnesota. But I think Indianapolis in a pretty good position to be that 2 seed and face the Eastern Division team. Likely it would be on the road in either DC or New York. And Madison, well, what a performance for the Radicals last weekend, just taking care of business.
The Chicago Wildfire were missing a few of their key players, but that is no excuse for the way that they played. The Madison team has continued to show how chemistry trumps all for them. No matter what organization or what number of players you put on the team, they just function so well together that it's been tricky for Chicago to counter that.
About 30 seconds away from the start of the second half, but quickly in the West Division, San Jose slightly ahead of San Francisco. Those 2 teams will meet one more time as well in San Fran. And the point differential so close, if San Fran wins that game against the Spiders, then perhaps they could host that playoff game. It will be the Bay Area battle to decide which one of those 2 juggernauts comes to Toronto championship weekend, the July 26th and 27th. Well, a whistle right on the opening pull of the half. And I believe one of the referees signaled for offsides again. Midfield for the Breeze, leading by 5. They won the second quarter 5-3 after winning the first quarter 9-6. It was an extended halftime of about 30 minutes here in Montreal, so daylight starting to wane. Really, the sun setting on downtown Montreal is pretty amazingly beautiful.
So much of this city is incredibly beautiful, Evan.
Hammer. Too much. But a whistle on the throw, and it looks like a contact call going against the Royale, so the Breeze will keep the disc. Beg your pardon, they waved it off, and now Montreal will get it. Daigle triggers the possession over to Genet. Middle of the field, 0-0, Eric Saint-Amand. Saint-Amand's been pretty silent so far. He's one of the key guys for the Royale when everything's going well. A guy who was an elite level player for a long time, played for Team Canada in 2008. Saint-Amand, a Blady hammer, right on the money. Chuck Cantone, the Virginia native, hauls in the score from Saint-Amand. Mikel Lacombe, the coach of the Royale, before the game said, look, Eric Saint-Amand is not at all the same player he was back in April when you saw him against Toronto. That was his first game in 2 years. Now he's had time to hone the throws like this.
It can take a while to get your ultimate feet back under you and your throws back up to par. But that was an incredibly well-timed, well-thrown hammer from Santamon. Could not come at a more opportune time.
The Royale within 4. That point took just 83 seconds. Tim Sang with a pull. What do you think of that sumo soccer game we had?
I think I might change sports, Evan.
Doesn't that look like fun? It looks like fun until you fall down and can't get up.
I also
Stahl called on DC here. Excuse me, Megan.
No, that's quite all right. I also imagine on a very hot day, being encased in plastic is probably not as much fun as it may look like.
Looking for the end zone. The shot from Castano, and he connects with Genet. Very little wind on this Saturday night. And the Royale have scored 2 straight to start the 3rd.
That's the kind of ease we saw them start this game with, Evan. And then they sort of took that nosedive right thereafter. If they can maintain this momentum, it's going to tighten up the game. But we learned from Mikel Lacombe, the head coach of the Royale, consistency has been consistently an issue for the Royale.
We spent so much time talking about the key guys that DC doesn't have. This Montreal Royal team without one of their defensive captains, Christian Mathieu. Mathieu Bordelot been plagued by injuries. He's been very quiet tonight. Mark Zimmerl, the guy they call Shaggy, the oldest player in the league. He's still an effective handler, but he's not in the lineup tonight. Jean-Philippe Riopel also suffered an ankle injury and is unavailable. But a good start to the 3rd quarter for the home team. Justin Solis could not have been more wide open underneath. Matsuka, the crafty flick, now racing up line. Instead, the dump and the swing. Resetting the field. Midfield on the campus of McGill University. DC on the board here in the 3rd. And it's Justin Solis in the end zone for the Breeze. So it's 15-11. Between the sumo soccer and the flyboarding that we saw last Sunday morning walking around on the shores of Lake Ontario in Toronto, we are seeing a whole new world of amazing sports. If you've never seen flyboarding before, you've got a lot of company. I doubt many people have seen it, but imagine walking on the shores of water and you see a man with a wakeboard flying through the air. That's basically what flyboarding is. Google it. Megan and I got to see it in person last Sunday morning in Toronto, and I mean, I'm still just perplexed on how that is physically possible.
Evan, I believe the exact words that came out of your mouth were, "Is that real?"
I think I blacked out, so I'll take your word for it.
It is pretty astounding, all jokes aside.
The first thing I did when I got back home, after flying back home, Googled it and watched some clips. Even have a favorite flyboarder now, Jason the Genius. The Royale looking to counter. Big layout D from the DC Breeze. Now taking the deep shot. Oh, what a point that was. You got to be kidding me. Brad Scott takes over for the DC Breeze. That is one of the most spectacular bookends you will ever see on any ultimate field on any level.
We absolutely have to see that play in its entirety again. For a second, I was sure Brad was not going to get the disc.
Which layout was more impressive, the D or the score?
I'd have to say the score. They were both beautiful.
I disagree.
They were both beautiful.
I disagree.
Oh.
I think the D was more impressive. He was still elevating, and, you know, Jose Maldonado just let this one fly. Scott wasn't even really cutting. That was gratuitous. Come on. Just kidding. Just kidding, everybody. So the Breeze get 2 points back. The Breeze gets one, and then Brad Scott takes another. Scott just 22 years old. Here's Cabot for the Royal. Had to wait for his teammates. Basically, everybody was behind the disc when he received it. That was not a good idea from the beginning. Antoine Genet tried to jam that low release flick, and he just turfed it. DC wants another deep shot. Oh, that's a spectacular D, but it's still in the air, and the DC Breeze so close to another unbelievable score. Maldonado inches away. And with Maldonado not getting this, this was just an outrageous D here. Look at that. That's Yolan Cabot. Looked like he was there, too. He just reached a little too far underneath the disc.
I think the ground jostling his elbow cost him that grab. But what else can you do with a defensive effort like Cabot? Naturally, that set that disc up to be incredibly difficult to grab. But that is classic Cabot behavior. We saw him just moments ago on the other end of the field trying to throw to his teammate. He's unstoppable when he's on the field. He will simply keep running.
Speaking of running, this is Chuck Cantone. In 2 throws, the Royale goes 70 and score.
Cantone actually having a heck of a game today. He has had a number of scores in the end zone where his timing on the cut, his positioning on the field, has made him the ideal target.
The lone American-born player on the Royale. Chuck Cantone went to Randolph-Macon College and then came to grad school here in Quebec. He does speak French, so he can understand his head coach, Michael Lacombe. 3 assistant coaches under Lacombe, Guylaine Girard, Caroline Caudette, and Jean-Philippe Jardin. Caroline Caudette gave birth about a month ago, and she's back on the sideline today. DC efficiently maneuvering down the field again. Jarnell Bajois forward and now beautifully up line. That's Josh Norris in the end zone. He lost his hat, but he's got the disc for DC. I mean, as a defense, there's not much you can do about offensive flow like that. You know, maybe get a little more physical, change up the mark. I mean, what can you do to try to just disrupt their game plan?
The best you can hope for is playing tighter downfield D, simply because if you shift your mark to the left, right now the Breeze are taking that inside out. If you shift it to the right, they're just going to put it long. They're taking the throws that the Royale are giving them. If you tighten up downfield man D, the best you can hope for is at least contesting the disc when it goes up.
So it was a 5-score game at the half. 3-3 so far here in the third. Matsuka's pull travels about 72 in the air. Over a poach, Cabot. The reset for Vanas. And now centered to Boucher. Eric Dion for Boucher. To the end zone, and it's Cantone once more. Well, you'd have to think that Chuck Cantone, being from not far from the D.C. area, really wants to play well in this lone home game against the Breeze. Two roads diverge for Chuck Cantone. He ended up here in Canada, but he just as easily could be playing for the Breeze if circumstances had gone another way.
Absolutely, but he has a number of years of experience on Canadian Ultimate teams. He's played for some of the top men's team here in Montreal, Odyssey and Mephisto. So despite where he might have played, his heart is definitely here with Montreal.
Some of the top Montreal players will be going to Worlds with Mephisto, Montreal's club team. In the Ultimate World, you'll hear a lot of talk about Worlds coming up in the beginning of August in Lecco, Italy. Of course, a big event, the U.S. Open of Ultimate in the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul area next weekend. A big convention of the sport, and a lot of the top teams looking at that as a great tune-up for Worlds. And of course, the AUDL Championship weekend, July 26th and 27th in Toronto. It's going to be a ridiculous showcase for Ultimate. Just the intrigue that is built up, the mysteriousness of these cross-divisional matchups. We've wondered all season long, what would Madison versus Toronto look like, the matchup we saw in the finals last year. Can San Jose take down Toronto? Could some team be the surprise? Could a team like Indianapolis crash the party in Toronto? We'll find out over the next month. What a catch in the end zone for the DC Breeze. And they're back up by 5. Tremendous snag. Able to angle the body and haul this one in.
The DC Breeze definitely winning the airspace tonight. Oftentimes we've seen DC alone in the end zone to catch the score.
John Pressimone to Peter Anderson.
But when the Royal are close, the DC has won just about every matchup.
The mark there of Olivier Drouin forced that flick to gain a little bit more air. But Anderson takes care of business in the end zone. I'm curious, when Dan Selman was a freshman at Towson, they gave him the nickname White Hat. Can you tell us the nickname that the girls at University of Chicago gave you when you started playing Ultimate there?
The nickname Meagles?
Sure.
That was actually given to me by Zaylin Titcomb, who now is one of the brothers running 5 Ultimate. Really for no reason. He just started calling me Meagles, and when I didn't respond, he said, "Hey, Megan, can I call you Meagles?" I said, "Sure." By the end of the week, I've rarely been called Megan in the 10 years since.
And that started in college, never in high school?
Never in high school.
DC off the turn, gives it away in the end zone. Great job getting to that disc first. The Montreal Royal will retake possession. That was Matthew Bordelot really making his first big play of the day. They're going to need big plays like that from Bordelot. This is a dangerous throw. And a Callahan! It's Brett. It's Ryan Nam in the end zone for the DC Breeze. And what a play for the visitors. The Callahan from Nam. You could tell that that flow was hanging up in the air a little too long.
Hopefully we can take another look at it. Callahan's always exciting. Much better to score on your home turf.
Just a huge play from Nam, and immediately Nicholas Vanas, number 25, realized that he didn't do enough to go after that disc. So that's a break in more ways than one.
Yeah.
Some Ultimate players say their biggest fear is throwing a Callahan. Their biggest fear in life, not just on the Ultimate field.
Yeah, it is a pretty defeating feeling.
Oh, there was contact there. Yeah, that throw clearly didn't go where Nicolas Brochu wanted it to, and he was hit on the arm. .4:15 left here in the third quarter. Evan Lepler with Megan Tormey. It was 9-6 DC after one, 14-9 at the half. That hammer hangs up for a while, but into the hands of Jean-Levy Champagne, who picks up the assist and tries to fire up the crowd. FX Hot with a score from Champagne. This team is the entire life of Jean-Levy Champagne. From talking to him, it's so much more than just an Ultimate team. This is his entire reason for waking up in the morning these days.
And that passion clearly shows in everything the Royal has produced so far. I know I am not alone in how impressed I am with the show they put on, with how classy their website is. They've thought of so many elements that really heighten the experience of this professional Ultimate team. And of course, Jean-Levy, that heart continues to show on the field. He is such a devoted player and has been from the very start.
A year ago, Jean-Levy Champagne this time was ready to lead the mixed team Odyssey down to the U.S. Open in Raleigh, a tournament they ended up winning. That flick from Bajwa was intercepted. Odyssey really made a name for itself, and Jean-Levy made a name for himself. Tremendous layout D, but just a little bit short. The Royal looking for two straight. Castano thinking big. Drops the hammer in the perfect spot. Tim Sang collects it in the end zone.
Fantastic put by Castano. Such an interesting guy. Talked with some of his teammates who say that Castano not only embodies the spirit of Ultimate on the field, but also in his life. He's known as being such a positive, caring person to friends and teammates. So his talent extending far beyond what he's able to do with the disc.
And he led Sang by about 35 yards there, without much room to spare. That's one of those throws that, if you're the DC team playing defense, that's a throw you want Montreal to throw. It's tough to be that precise on a put like that. Helps that there's very little wind tonight, but still, that was beautiful. So the Royal are keeping it within striking distance here. And certainly at this point of the game, when these two teams first met, it looked like the Royal were on their way to a big road win. So nothing decided yet. Strong underneath cut by Sam Trackman. Dumps it back for Norris, who crosses to Stone. DC doing a nice job. The handlers always know where the cuts are coming from, even if they're from the far side of the field. A lot of cuts that begin on the break side, sort of diagonal cuts toward the open side, and that's just a beautiful low-release flick break to the end zone.
I think Justin was a little surprised, didn't realize that disc was coming, and had to react as it was halfway to him.
Well, there was so much space for John Stone, and then Ryan Nam, who's had a sensational half. The Callahan, and not a real active mark there from Borderlow. Easily beaten. $20-15. The best players and the best teams in Ultimate put so much more focus on the mark than I ever thought was possible. And at the elite levels, as you know, playing for Chicago Nemesis and playing national caliber Ultimate for a long time, you can't take a breath on the mark. Some people may think of the mark as your chance to just stand there and count, but if you're not active, if you're not on the balls of your feet, it's going to cost your team when you face a guy who has the throws to beat you.
That's an excellent point, and as a downfielder, you so depend on your mark to hold the agreed upon mark. You put all of your effort on trying to stop your player from going into the disc on the open side, and if 1 second the mark drops off or shifts a little too far and the break throw goes off, it can very easily be a score.
A fine put from Dion to Genet. Dion makes the little slash cut. You could tell he was looking deep immediately. He wanted it. Made eye contact with Genet, who had a few steps on Matsuka.
Great put from Dion. Dropped his shoulder just enough to give the disc the shape it needed to get around the defender. And on the scoreboard for the Royale.
That's Yolan Cabot, who had that great layout the first game of the Montreal Royal season against Toronto in the end zone, with the entire crowd erupting like a Kevin Durant buzzer-beating three in the stands. One of the great highlights that's up on YouTube of the AUDL on ESPN3. They've announced a crowd of well over 1,300 here at Percival Molson Stadium. They have been active and lively from the opening pull to where we stand at the moment. 36 points in. The Breeze have the advantage by 4. Basically 3 straight swings at 10 yards each, and there's still another 10, 15 yards to go cross field, but no more need to swing it. They've created enough space into the end zone, and DC with a quick counter. Just under a minute to go here in this first half. Liam Shremko with the score. Numerous guys on DC said that Liam Shremko was their MVP for the game against the New York Empire, the game that elevated the Breeze into second place in the division.
He's all around a very solid player, has experience with Medicine Men, which is one of the competitive club teams, men's teams in the DC area.
Shremko, originally from St. Paul, Minnesota, went to Evergreen State College. You don't necessarily think of up there with Colorado and UNC as ultimate powerhouses. One of the cool things about really all sports, the guys that come from the very small schools that nobody has ever heard of. Even in the NFL and the NBA, you see guys, Division II, Division III schools, making an impact. Guy like Alfred Payton out of Louisiana Lafayette that nobody ever heard of, and he goes in the top 10 on Thursday night in the NBA draft. Final 35 seconds, and a layout to keep this point alive for Montreal. Trying to get within 4. A shot to space. Perfect.
The Royal offense certainly coming to life in this second half. Earlier they seemed stagnant, slow to react. The throws didn't have quite enough zip on them. Certainly the speed of the game is picking up for the Royal, and we've seen them open up the field a little bit with longer, more dynamic throws such as this one.
Once again, Gustavo Castaño right on cue into the hands of FX Hot. Madison Radicals, comfortable halftime lead over the Detroit Mechanics. And a final score from Rochester. Toronto wins it by 9. The Rush are still undefeated. Next weekend, the Rush will face the Royal in Montreal's final game. Again, DC doing a fine job creating tons of space underneath. They set up that side stack so far down the field. Clockwork again. Solis picks up the assist. Jarnell Bajwa the score for the Breeze.
Takes a lot of discipline to keep your side stack pulled out of the way of the downfield movement. The DC doing a great job of that, giving their teammates the space they need to make their cuts and get these opportunities.
So just a few seconds to go here in this third quarter. The Breeze back up by 5. I asked Alex Gesquier, Dutchie, earlier this week, would we see some elements of revolver style and of DC Scandal style for the Breeze? And he said, not really. This is a team, we don't have that much practice time, guys coming from all different systems. We're looking for sort of a common denominator strategy. Move the disc quickly, give and goes, nothing that's all that complicated so everybody can mesh into the system. And it's worked out pretty well for the Breeze. A few max, not enough. That hits turf and ends the third quarter here in Quebec. High scoring third quarter, 16 points in 12 minutes. Both sides scored 8. And after 3 here in Montreal, it's the Breeze 22, the Royal 17.
Yeah, it's a zip car. I don't own it, I just use it when I need it. Zipcar has thousands of cars parked all over the city, even 2 on my block. You can use one for an hour or for a day. And Zipcar pays for gas and insurance. It's easy.
Go to zipcar.com to get your zip card, the key to vehicles parked in your neighborhood and across the globe. For work or play, find a zip car near you, book it,
and before you know it, you're on the road.
Cars by the hour or day, gas and insurance included.
Join for as little as $6 per month at zipcar.com.
Look at that shot. What a night here in Montreal. One of the great cities in the world. If you've never been here, I strongly recommend coming to town, and preferably do it on a weekend when the Montreal Royal have a home game. Evan Lepler with Megan Tormey, and the fans still enjoying this despite a 5-score deficit as we take the turn for home. And as we jump into these third quarter highlights, a lot of offense back and forth in this third quarter. What do you see from Montreal? They showed some signs. There were some runs of 2 points from one side and 2 points to the other. Certainly the Callahan from Ryan Nam was a key turning point. And that point from Brad Scott as well. Number 9 for Washington, D.C., perhaps the point of the match through 3 quarters.
The Royal definitely showed us that they are not ready to be beaten. They are not ready to give this game up. The fact that it was 8-8 in that quarter bodes well for the Royal, but now they have to fight ahead for every point that the Breeze scored. They need to score 2.
No doubt about it. You know, with a 16-point quarter, you think, well, if there are 16 points in this quarter, can they outscore them 11-5? I mean, that would win it if you outscore. But that's a tall task in 12 minutes to outscore a team like that, especially with the way DC's offense has flowed.
Exactly right.
Brett Matsuka will take a jog cross field. He doesn't seem to be very angry all that often.
I had the pleasure of speaking with him on the phone on his way up from Raleigh to D.C. We probably talked for an hour. Very fun guy. Also in the car was John Stone, and if you are at all a Game of Thrones fan, I highly recommend you visit the DC Breeze website and check out John Stone's bio. Not going to say anything else. I don't want to spoil it, but you will be glad you visited if you care at all about Game of Thrones.
Stone defending despite the fact that he knows nothing. He knows plenty.
As he's showing in this game.
So Montreal could get within 4 on this offensive point. Cabot. And now the deep shot looking for Borderlow, but it's nowhere near the target. A turnover 30 seconds into this fourth quarter. The Breeze in the white. The Royal in the blue. DC still with 5 games left, including this one. They're 7-2 right now in this 14-game schedule. 2 games this weekend, 2 games next weekend, and then the finale against New York. And that last game on the weekend of the 12th, 13th could decide which team has a home playoff game. We have seen some really pretty hammers tonight, haven't we?
Indeed, we have. Everyone has been very exciting and incredibly well executed.
Cross field again for A.J. Jakoski. Ryan Nam. With a wide field, the cross field hammer will almost always be open. And on a night like this with so little wind, we've had plenty of breeze, but there's not much wind.
It certainly helps when you have a receiver like AJ who's 6'3". That never hurts.
If you're tall and you're named AJ, you've got a pretty good chance to play Ultimate in this league.
And be really good at it.
A.J. Nelson of the Chicago Wildfire, one of the best deep threats in the Midwest Division. It's good downfield defense there by Ben Feng. He was right with the guy who wanted to go deep for Montreal. So the Royal reset. And the D near midfield made by Feng. He was in his defender's pocket that entire point. Jean-Levy Champagne with unintentional contact, but a violation nonetheless. 10-yard penalty. Maldonado resets. Matsuka loves to hold that disc up and then fires a fastball. Matsuka with an impossible scuba. Not in the end zone yet. Brett Matsuka's been on a mission this point. And this is Maldonado who turns it over. Nice job defending that front cone. But the deep shot swatted and stolen. Selwyn to the end zone. Breeze had their largest lead of the night, 24-17. Russell Howd in the end zone. And sometimes off a turnover, your eyes get a little bit big thinking about that downfield target, and you don't pay attention to the nearby poach. See this wind up here with the big arms of the DC Breeze getting away.
Great job by Ben Fang that point, just being in the right place at the right time, obviously, but helped expedite that scoring process by catching the disc that was deflected quickly into his arms.
Fang, originally from Andover, Mass, went to Georgetown, plays for Truck Stop, and now also coaches the Maryland women. Must be nice when they have their games in College Park. You need a couple volunteers. Get Ben to see if any of the Maryland girls are busy that night. It really has been amazing, Megan, going from one Ultimate community to the next, to see how eager everyone in the Ultimate community is to help out, volunteer, contribute. Not a bad D from DC. It's been the story of the game, really, and Matsuka will pick it up. But wherever we go, the army of volunteers and people who want to see this league succeed, want to see crowds like the one we've got here in Montreal, over 1,300.
Talking with as many players as I have over the course of this season, the answer I get the most often as to why do you play in the AUDL is it's the obvious and natural progression of this sport, and I'm excited to be a part of it. And I think everyone kind of feels that impetus to join, that impetus to help out, whether it's to play, to coach, to volunteer at the games, to go and watch the games. It's just a very exciting time.
There wasn't much of a window for this throw, but it's still perfect, and DC has another one. The lead stretches to 8. Aaron Roberts, one of the shutdown defenders, carves out just a little window here from Matsuka. There was very little separation when Roberts made his cut, and then he created it. Stepping away from Eric Dion, he had the poaching defender nearby as well, but Roberts looked like he had no doubt.
Yeah, he caught that with the confidence of someone who's alone in the end zone.
The Breeze have scored 3 in a row to begin this fourth quarter. Fans enjoy the layout to keep possession alive, but you know these handler cuts are looking way too difficult right here. A chance to put this in. Oh ho ho! How about that? FX hot. If at first you don't succeed, why not give it another try? That's why you get 3 strikes. On the 0-2 count, he hits the home run.
If you misread the disc and jump too early, the best thing you can do is hope that your defender will misread the disc as well, which is exactly what happened. Hoth got 2 shots.
Strike 1, strike 2, and finally Hot able to make some fine contact. Tim Sang with a pull.
The Breeze have brought 19 players with them today. They're allowed 20 on their roster. They were able to bring 19 today. So they're playing down one man, which means more running for everyone.
You wouldn't think it, though, the way they've played. That's another beautiful throw. Could not have placed it any better in a well-timed leap and catch to finish the score. Peter Anderson once again.
Showing us why it's great to be 6'4".
Anderson, one of the eldest and wisest members of the Breeze. He's 33. Nice effort from Charles Barreto, but you can't teach 6'4". Here's a look at the roster that DC has brought. They're not giants, but they do have some size. With Anderson, Tchaikovsky, Prestimone, of course Logan Ryan stands out. And then you add, Tyler DiGirolamo into the mix. I asked Alex Gesquier, what he thought of Tyler DiGirolamo as a player. And, Dutchie's a guy who's seen all the top players in the world. And he said he's as good as anybody I've ever coached in terms of deep game. Told me a story, Poultry Days last year when the U.S. World Games team was there and they met a team from Pittsburgh with DiGirolamo. Montreal working it down the field, trailing by 8. And basically, Alex Gesquier told Mac Taylor, traveling violation called on Montreal, it'll be DC's disc. He told Mac Taylor, one of the great deeps in the sport, played for the U.S. World Games team that won gold, obviously. He told him, your one job, your only job, is to stop DiGirolamo from going deep. Well, the score was about 5-5, and Tyler's team had scored 5 deep shots to Tyler. It basically, they had to change the strategy because the plan of having Mac just shut him down was not working.
That's a huge compliment coming from a coach such as Dutchie, who's led so many teams to first place in various championships.
On the brink of a 9-score lead. Nice job clearing space. Such an underrated part of Ultimate, the field sense dynamic and knowing that he wasn't going to get the disc. This is a team score right here from the Breeze. And now they lead by 9, their largest lead yet as we touch the midway point of this fourth quarter. But nothing was doing on the open side. Everything was clogged. Guys cleared out. They got a dump. Opened it back up again. That's just pretty Ultimate.
It can be so tempting to try and force a throw, try and force a score when you're so close to the end zone. It takes a lot of discipline to pull it off the end zone line and work it around. Try a different avenue.
And it takes everybody to buy in because if one guy stays in the wrong spot, that foils the entire offensive plan. Tchaikovsky with the score. Tonight's Twitter question once again, what expansion city would you like to see in the AUDL next year? Now this question sort of brews. There was some Twitter discussion this week. The AUDL Twitter account has been very coy about there's going to be some expansion next year. Hashtag Southeast. With no more information than that. It's up to you to figure it out. We've had some conversations. We have a little bit of a sense of what's going on, but we don't know for sure. Very few people do, but I'm pretty confident in saying there will be some teams in the Southeast next year. Montreal finally squelches the DC run. Still incredible fan support here in Quebec. Maxime Guy with the score.
Guy has been a pretty impactful player in other games with the Royal. In particular, the Royal versus New York Empire. Haven't seen too much of Guy so far this game, but what an exemplary read and catch over your D.
A look at the Montreal Royal roster for tonight. No Christian Mathieu, no Jean-Philippe Riopel. Both teams with an average height of 5'11". Montreal also playing without Mark Zemurl, the 6'4" handler. The DC Breeze have not lost a single quarter in this game. 9-6 in the first, 5-3 in the second. Both teams scored 8 in the third. And so far, 5-2, stretching the lead here in the fourth, but here's a turnover. Montreal going to finish in fourth place in this Eastern Division. For a first-year team in a city, Montreal, in a province that isn't known for its ultimate. Almost an acrobatic grab there. What do you think the key is going forward for Montreal to take that next step competitively? They've got the infrastructure in terms of administration, owners, obviously incredible fan support. On the field, do they need to sort of cultivate a young stud?
I think that is it. I think that is imperative for the Royal moving forward. They have so much experience, but they don't quite have the type of person who's hungry for the D, who's going to get in there, run down, make a huge layout grab, which isn't to take away anything from the players on the field who do make great defensive efforts, but I think they just need a little more speed and a little more intensity.
Another transition point for the DC Breeze. DC closing in on 30 here tonight. Logan Ryan played for the Australian U23 national team. He's spent a lot of time in New Zealand. A guy that the coaching staff trusts so much to do the right thing all the time.
And in his spare time, Evan, he likes to build stoves out of recycled aluminum cans.
Who doesn't?
I suppose that's the appropriate response.
That would be a great, how-to video.
Well, according to Logan, they do exist. This is something that a lot of people like to do, build camping stoves out of recycled aluminum cans because they're lightweight. Anyone can make one. And apparently there's a craft, there's an art, there's something meditative about making these stoves.
Ultimate players are the best, aren't they?
Yes. They absolutely are.
DC has not led by 10 yet. The Breeze with their smooth offensive flow. Looking for the double-digit lead. A little too much. Castaño on the goal line. Bordeleau over to Dion. St. John Timmins looking for Maxime Guy, and he is in.
The crowd not giving up on their team. Much like the players on the field, we still see a lot of effort and a lot of heart coming from these Royal players.
Before you head down for the post-game interview, your 7-day away thoughts on next weekend showdown between DC and New York, and really your thoughts on tomorrow's showdown between DC and New York.
That's a great question. I think these teams are so well matched in terms of intensity as well as offensive output. But I have to say, having watched DC tonight, if they play tomorrow like they did today, which is going to be incredibly difficult given how tired they will undoubtedly be from this effort, but if they play as well and as smooth as they did tonight, I think the game goes to DC.
DC could win in New York tomorrow without Thorne and DiGirolamo. That would be a huge emotional win. Now, we saw New York last week. They were a little banged up. And both teams could be missing some key guys next weekend. Not sure exactly what the rosters will look like for both teams. But DC's at New York tomorrow, then home for New York next Saturday. On Sunday, DC will be at Philadelphia, and then on Saturday, the 12th of July, final regular season game in New York for the Breeze. Well, that is into the stands, and the Montreal fans come up empty. Fresh disc down on the field as we close in on 1 minute to go. Well, certainly a disappointing night for the Royal. After the way the first meeting between these two teams went on the road, the Royal had to expect to really battle for a win tonight. But instead, Montreal is going to fall to 0-8 against the top three teams in the league. They're 5-0 against the bottom two. Clearly, the Royal a step ahead of Philadelphia and a step above Rochester. But at this point in their inaugural season, the Royal, in terms of on-field success, will not medal in the Eastern Division. Toronto has not officially closed out first place yet, but with the remaining schedule for the Rush, everybody expects them to be at the top of the pack and host a playoff game the weekend of July 18th and 19th. Toronto is the 1 seed in the East, would host the 3 seed, either DC or New York. DC hopeful to be the 2 seed. Cabot flings one for Cantone and just out of his grasp. That'll do it from Percival Molson Stadium tonight. The largest lead of the night for the DC Breeze was 9, and that's the final margin. Or is it? It looks like the referee wants to add 10 seconds to the clock. An incredible display of support from the fans here in Montreal. And now it's over. A well officiated game, and for the most part, a very well played game. DC's offense was spectacularly efficient, and the defense swarmed plenty to force turnovers. And with Brett Matsuka and Daniel Selwyn, they took care of business on the mistakes. The Breeze improved to 8-2 after a 4-12 season a year ago. And meanwhile, this Montreal team slips to 5-8 with one more game next week. Wouldn't it be something if the Royal could be the first team to beat the Toronto Rush? Certainly Montreal will give Toronto its best shot next weekend at Varsity Stadium in Toronto. The Royal have unbelievable support, but it's the DC Breeze victorious tonight. One of the key turning points in that second half was the Callahan score from DC's Ryan Nam. And he is down on the field right now, standing by with Megan Tormey.
Thanks so much, Evan. Ryan, a standout from today's game. Today, a much more decisive win over Montreal. What are your post-game thoughts?
I think that our team is really developing chemistry as the season goes on. We're from all different parts of the area, and you can see it on the field every game we progress. And how we play together, how we know each other's cuts, and it shows because we're getting better as the season goes on.
And you had a particularly amazing game. What were your personal thoughts going into today's game?
We were fired up. I mean, this clinches a playoff spot for us, so a big performance was key, and I feed off my teammates' energy, and I give it back, and that's what shows in a game like today.
Can you guys do this again tomorrow?
Absolutely. We're ready to go. We feel good. We played a great game against New York, and we're ready to do it again.
All right, and it's early to say such things, but what are your thoughts about the playoff weekend and beyond?
We are really excited to secure up second spot and get to play a Midwest opponent, get to see a different team. We feel good about going to Toronto and playing them with a full squad and getting and winning the championship this year.
Well, congratulations on a game incredibly well played. It was fun to watch, and we look forward to seeing you next week against the New York Empire.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. And Evan, back to you.
Megan, Ryan, thank you. Tremendous game from the DC Breeze. Their weekend has just begun. They'll stay here in Montreal tonight, and then tomorrow they will head to New York to face the Empire, the second of 4 meetings between the Breeze and the Empire as they battle it out to decide who will host a game in the playoffs and who has to go on the road to the defending champions in the first round. Another great trip to Montreal. The Royal fall short, though, as the DC Breeze, a very impressive performance without 2 of its top players. DiGirolamo and Thorne couldn't make it. The Breeze keep on rolling anyway. DC improves to 8-2 now in the year, the only 2 losses, both coming at the hands of the Toronto Rush. Want to thank everybody here with the Montreal Royal and at Percival Molson Stadium. They were incredible hosts to us again. But on behalf of everybody with the Fulcrum Media Group team, for my broadcast partner, Megan Tormey, I'm Evan Lepler saying good night from Percival Molson Stadium. Final score once again, 29-20, the Breeze over the Royal. Next Saturday night, we will be in Washington, D.C., in fact, in College Park, Maryland, for the Breeze and the Empire. That's a 7 o'clock pull. Hope you can join us next Saturday night. But for now, on behalf of our entire team, good night, everybody, and thanks for watching the AUDL on ESPN3.
Merci à tous.